In my considered view, something, we're still in the corner. We haven't fully turned yet. And I'll explain that with some of the indicators, right? We cannot deny that there has been some positive signs of recovery, quote and unquote. And it's quite important we understand that. But the frame of reference in terms of some of these relative positive signs is just what's happened in the last couple of weeks and months. But that does not in any way indicate whatsoever that we have fully turned the corner as yet. In other words, when you look at some of the indicators that the government set for itself in the 2023 budget, which was read in November of last year, and you compare that to what the projections are for this year, clearly you see that there are issues. Because if we had turned the corner, the question then would have been, why are we then revising all these macroeconomic numbers and indicators down from what we said we'll be doing ourselves? So let's start with the positives, and then we'll address the other substantive issues. Yes, if you look at GDP growth on the quarterly basis, the number that we have for the first quarter of the year is up 4.2% versus 3% of last quarter. If you look at the reserves, which is one of the big issues with CD and the depreciation, the net international reserves was 0.6 months, basically 2 weeks of import cover as of December last year. That's how dire the situation was. And it's been reported now that it's now gone up to 1.1 months of import cover.
So that's 3 weeks, right?
No, that's 1.1 months. So that's 1 month and a couple of days on top of that. So we've been able to add some buffer, more or less, to that. If you look at the primary balance, so the primary balance is your revenue and expenditure, but you don't include your interest payments in that. If you look at that, the report shows that we have a surplus of 1.1% of GDP versus an original target of 0.04%. And there's public debt and all of that. So these are positive indicators. We acknowledge that. But you have to do a holistic analysis using the entire budget number of 2023 as a frame of reference. And if you use that as a frame of reference, it is difficult to sustain then the argument that we have turned the corner. Because the indicators show very clearly that we have made major adjustments and cuts to a lot of these numbers. Take inflation, for argument's sake. In the original policy target, inflation should be between 6 and 10%. Inflation now is in excess of 42%, right? And it's sticky. It's not coming down anytime soon. So you cannot then, on the basis of that, say, because the inflation is 40 or so percent and it's been relatively stable around that mark, we have turned the corner. That argument doesn't wash. Take the exchange rate, CD, again, right? The CD has been trading around 11 or so for some time now. However, if you do the depreciation and you work out the number, right, from the beginning of the year, it is very clear. You're talking almost 22, 23% depreciation year to date. So again, it's difficult to sustain that argument of having turned the corner. The indicators are positive, but we are still largely in the corner and we have not turned in that regard.